I saw that. I'm trying to be that.
Yeah, you got all that.
We don't need the executive session.
I have halibut
We-
pots, yeah.
There's no.
I forget,
I never really got it.
I didn't read that all the way down when I was reading her.
Bigger opening.
Probably always just.
They do work, but the problem is,
Well-
We got one today, like.
Last
the
meeting
problem with
said
them
we were
was
gonna,
you can only fit.
Oh, that's right,
2,
not
3 fish in
December
a pot,
or September,
and then it's full.
April 16th.
And then the sand
Yeah.
fleas,
So we
you
should
didn't
just
pick
take it
that
off.
pot.
Yeah,
6
until
hours,
April
the sand
16th.
fleas would kill the fish.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And
You ready? Are you good? Okay. It will call the city council regular meeting of March 6th to order. Please stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, roll call, please.
Mayor Allison,
Here.
Tom Baylor,
Here.
Kathy Sherman,
Here.
Casey Kinsman,
Here.
Wendy Rainey,
Here.
and Schaefer is absent. Kristen Carpenter
Here.
and Ken Jones.
Here,
And that is a quorum.
Any objection to the agenda? We are removing the executive session because we had said last time we were gonna talk about that on April 16th, I believe. So unless people want that, we'll remove the executive session. Any objection? Okay, then the agenda will be approved. Disclosures of conflicts of interest and ex parte communications. Wendy, can you tell me if anybody's hands up there ever?
No, you're good.
Okay, hearing none, communications by and petitions from visitors. We don't have any guest speaker tonight. So audience comments regarding agenda items. Don't see anybody running up, so we've got chairpersons and representatives of boards and commissions. The hospital board.
Hi, everyone. Same to report as last time. Hospital closed out the year just as we thought, in the black. The audit is nearly completed, so there might be some adjustments based on PERS. The way that goes into the audit can sometimes adjust our bottom line, but overall, we had a great year. The beginning of the year is always hard in healthcare because people haven't met their deductibles, especially if you have high deductible plans. People tend to avoid care during this time. We want to make sure the community knows we don't want them avoiding care to come in. If they have a hard time meeting their deductible, they can work with our business office and we will help make sure that they can receive the care that they need. Today, we deinstalled the old CT scan so we can prep the room for the new one. So there is a period of time, which might even be a month, that we will be without a CT scanner. But we're excited to have a new functional machine, and it should be up and running early April.
Good.
Glad to answer any questions.
Do you have any questions for Hannah? Anybody? Okay, thank you. School board?
Good evening, and thank you for having me. We've gone a number of months, maybe even a year without too much on the plate, but now we suddenly have a couple of pretty hot topic items on our plate. So I'm going to start with one that seems a little easier, but maybe not to everyone. So the issue of where we're going to house the sixth grade next year and the year after. We're in the enviable position of having a significantly growing population of elementary school students. which is exciting, but also presents some challenges. And maybe the easiest way to sum it up is that we had a presentation last night from the administration at a site council meeting that was attended by about 22 parents in addition to staff and board members. It was a great conversation. But maybe the bottom line is we have 13 classrooms at the elementary school and we need 15 or 16. This year we'll need 15, the year after we might need 16. That's a problem. And some people might ask how we got here. Well, one of the ways we got here is that when we had to design the new building in 2008 and build it in 2010, the way the state rules require the plans to be made is you can only make it on the existing student population. You can't project for larger or smaller. You just have to do the existing. So the building was built to that specification without any idea that we would have an increase of 40 or 50 students. So here we are, and it offers some opportunities, but also some challenges. And so those are the things that the administration and the board are looking at in terms of what's going to best meet the needs of students and what are our capacities in terms of staffing. So those are the conversations that are happening right now. No decisions have been made. We're still talking about it. We're researching, we're investigating, we're counting. So we've had 2 site council meetings. There will be a combined staff meeting to address the issue on the 23rd. The board's going to hear more about it at our next board meeting. And then in April, the superintendent hopes to be making recommendations if we need changes. I think one of the challenges is if we keep 6th grade at the elementary school, there's some fairly significant construction that would have to happen. And we're not sure where that money would come from. So that maybe leads into my second topic, which I've been pretty nervous about discussing. So we have a pretty unprecedented deficit that we're looking at. We had a budget meeting last week. And if there is no increase to the base student allocation, which is what the governor is saying he wants, our district will be facing about a $1.5 million deficit. If there is an increase to the BSA that the Senate and now a joint resolution has proposed of $680 per student, we'll face about a $900,000 deficit. We had communicated with the legislature in the state of Alaska that Cordova, in order to just maintain functioning and meet the needs of our students, we would need $1,440 per student added to the base student allocation. And that's really a result of the lack of inflation proofing, the increased costs of operating, so increased costs of health insurance, increased costs of building insurance, increased costs of supplies, loss of grants. So for instance, we had a grant that we all wanted to know why our cost of milk had increased by 10 times. Well, it's because in the past couple of years, several years, there's been a federal grant that helped us pay for milk, which is a required element of lunch. Like we don't have a choice, we have to do it. And those grants are gone. So whereas in the last several years, we paid $5,000 a year for milk, next year we'll have to pay $50,000. So those are some of the pressures that we're facing and really, really struggling with, of course. So in addition to presenting you with that information, I have a couple of asks. So one ask is that the city council consider writing a resolution or a letter communicating with both the legislature and the governor in particular that the current funding is not sufficient for Cordova students or for Alaska students. A lot of data out there that demonstrates that. The fact that they have not inflation-proofed education funding alone illustrates why we would be behind in being able to meet the needs of our students. The second ask I would have is we have a budget meeting coming up on, now I'm going to get the date wrong, I think it's the 22nd, a budget work session. So I would love to invite city council members to come to that meeting. I want to talk to the board and the superintendent about making it a work session in which there can be a back and forth dialogue and at least questions asked. Because this is pretty unprecedented. And from what I understand, the district has not faced this kind of deficit since probably the late 1990s. that was the last time we had to actually lay off staff. And quite frankly, that's what we're looking at. And I typically don't do this, and I've had this conversation with this council about, I don't really like coming and saying, well, if we don't get enough money, we're going to have to cut this or we're going to have to cut that. But I'm a little worried that even when we're talking to people in the community, they're not really understanding what we're facing, because the district has just consistently, and really with the city's assistance, absorbed the lack of funding and the decreased funding and even the cuts in funding. But we're not able to do that anymore. So for instance, our food service costs, we take over $200,000 out of our general fund budget to help cover food service costs. The athletics, we take over 300,000 out of our general fund budget for activities and athletics. When we start to look at the core mission of education, we have to focus on maintaining teachers in the classroom. So I'm saying this both, again, to encourage the council to write a resolution or a letter to the legislature and the governor, to speak to people in the community, to ask them to do the same, and to really help us look at how can we continue to support our students. So happy to take any questions. Thanks for letting me go on a little bit tonight.
Mayor
Yeah,
Allison.
Wendy?
So I'd like to, first of all, advocate to keep the library in the elementary school, but I know that that's a big space that could be utilized for students. And that meeting, the work session, is that going to have like a Zoom call-in available?
I can check on that. We typically don't do that for work sessions.
Yeah.
But I also understand that, if there are people, council members wanting to participate, we want to encourage that. So I can
I'll
certainly
be out
check
of
on
town
it.
and I would love to participate in that meeting.
Yep.
So a Zoom link would be amazing.
I will see if we can do it.
Okay, thank you.
And just, we'll talk about during pending agenda, maybe writing a letter or doing a resolution is probably better, because then it comes from the entire council instead of just a letter. But we did sign on to the mayor's letter through the AML
Great.
on the school funding.
Thank you.
Advocating for the full amount. I think just inflation proofing, it's 1,700 maybe, I think, somewhere between 1,400 and 1,700 is what they've calculated it, just to make it equal to what inflation has done since the last increase.
One of the things I learned at the last fly-in, and I've been to so many, but you always learn something new. So every other department for the state of Alaska has an inflation-proof budget, which I did not know until this last fly-in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Barb. Any other boards and commissions here? Don't see any, so. Okay, we don't have a student council report. So the consent calendar is before you. Anybody want to pull anything? Okay, Kevin, can you call the roll on the consent calendar?
Tom Baylor,
Yes.
Kathy Sherman,
Yes.
Casey Kinsman,
Yes.
Wendy Rainey,
Yes.
Kristen Carpenter,
Yes.
Ken Jones,
Yes.
and the consent calendar is approved.
Okay, the minutes were in the consent calendar. No bids or contracts, so we'll move on to the reports of officers, the mayor's report. We had the Alaska X exercises here. I don't know if anybody else was gonna report on that at all. I know a lot of our key staff were involved in that. I think everybody did a good job. We're practicing to make sure that we're prepared a little better, maybe if a real emergency happened. And hopefully Karma will help us out a little bit. If we keep practicing, we won't actually need it at any time, but that was a pretty major operation. Had their head set up good for us, but I don't want to start thanking people because there are too many to miss too many. So, many people involved in that and everybody did a good job on that. I think we learned a lot and I guess what I took from the closing meeting that we had today, I think they call it a hot mop. Is that what it's called?
Wash.
Hot wash, hot mop, hot wash. Anyway, what I took from that was that we could solve. If we have a real tsunami, we are not gonna get anything out of the inundation zone. The scenario that we had, was 10 minutes from the point of the earthquake. Takes 5 minutes to notify you, so we would have 5 minutes to get out. It took the fire department 40 minutes just to move the apparatuses out of the zone and dispatch and fire communications, all of that stuff down there is, if we had a real tsunami, we wouldn't have any of it. There's no time to move to an alternate emergency operations center. In that instance, at least, and I think with most instances, that would probably be the case. So I think we need to continue our efforts to replacing that building down there into a more safer location that they don't have to move every time that something happens. I think that would solve 80% of the bigger issues that we had during the operation. So, but the shelter went well, I think. The food distribution went well. The National Guard, albeit late. I don't know if anybody had a chance to go down and look at those tents that they had. They are still here. I told them they were welcome to leave them if they needed to. The kitchen was pretty fancy. My wife really liked that all stainless steel kitchen in a box. So anyway, that's been keeping us busy for a while. I don't know that there's anything else other than the legislature. They're in the middle of their school funding battle with the governor and the legislature. So, as Barb said, it's going to be a tough one. We're not. Anchorage is looking at $100 million deficit, but they got 70 million in the bank to cover 70% of that. I don't think we have 70% of our deficit in the bank to help us out. So it is important. But if they did increase the BSA, not that we've got money coming out of ours either, but if the BSA increases, then so also does our maximum contribution based on their formula. I don't. Maybe Alex can provide during that budget workshop what, based on the different scenarios, if it was a $300 or $600 or $1,400, what that does to the city's max. Does it allow us another 100, 200, 500, whatever that is? So anyway, any questions? Me, okay, the manager's report.
Okay. So, yep, the exercise went off pretty well. I thought Colin did an excellent job. All our staff did really well coming in. Kevin had just literally been at the training and got to do his job 5 days later. So that was pretty good. Of course, there were some things, but some things that we learned that were good that we can put together. And also Paul will give a little update more on the EMS side, because that's where he rocked it at. On the finance side, finance is a big topic these days. Carmen Jackson did start working. They are right now working in 23, looking at Cassell to give me a 6-month income forecast to see what's happening in the next 3 and next 6 months, where our income's going in. Again, taking that 3.9 million out of the general fund is a big hit. So we need to be aware of what we're doing and where we're at. We did get the permanent fund transfer done. We paid Turnigan. We're working on the reimbursement. Colin will give a little update on that. We will be prepping for our audit starting next week and the week after. Our audit is scheduled for May 20th. For a week. Last year we did it, or they were just here for a week. Sometimes in the past they had been here for 2, so hopefully for a week. And that's kind of all I really, I did get the wastewater plan and the water master plan, all the documentation into the state. So hopefully that will be a quick turnaround because they don't have to do a big financial analysis like they typically do with a loan. And we can get that RFP out the door. So Paul is going to talk about substation 4, mile 4 substation and the Alaska X event, and then Colin will give his update. I know, but you should go first. Colin always has to go first.
Tom Baylor, are you here?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so an update for the substation. As you all know, we've had some sinking of our cement slab. It's a 6-inch slab. One corner has sunk 12 inches on the northeast corner, which is the lake side of the building. And the southeast corner is about 3 inches. We did a test run. Tom Baylor was present. We did our first shoot or level of the building to get kind of a baseline of where the building sits. And then Malvin and I went back 5 months later and did another shoot prior to the winter. And the 12-inch corner sagged additional 3/4 of an inch, I believe. And then the 3-inch corner sagged, I think, 3/8 of an inch. So it was still kind of moving a little bit. The city of Cordova hired Kaufman Engineering to come in and do analysis of all of the facilities in Cordova. And they spent some time out at the substation, and they kind of gave us a preliminary cost to fix it with a construction crew in Anchorage that knows how to fix the issues that we're having. I have no clue on what to do. So this week, Sam, Malvin, and I contacted Kaufman Engineering to help us design and stamp a plan to get the building fixed and raised. And they also recommended a construction company that they work specifically with to help this. So what we'd like to do, and I don't have any, I can't really answer any questions at this time, but if you have questions, we'll definitely get back to you. But what we'd like to do is hire Kaufman to do the drawings, to make the plan, and to be our project engineer for the project. And then we, the city, would hire the construction company that they recommend to do the lift. And they'll manage the whole thing. And again, these are engineered drawings. They are stamped, so it protects the city if we have any issues later. And they're looking at coming in April, the end of April, because of the snow issues. And then they're going to do their own assessment. They're going to bring in their own equipment and give us a really good idea of exactly what's going on. And then later, after the plans are drawn and stamped, the city can decide whether to hire this company to come in and actually do the lift. They'll monitor it and the whole thing. And then that we're looking at a time frame of no later than September 25th, so we can get our equipment back into the building. But having most of our rolling stock outside won't hurt for a couple months. The only crucial piece of equipment that we have is the tanker, and we obviously don't want that to freeze. So moving the equipment outside, we don't have to relocate it. It can sit where it's at. We've got 3 generators, portable generators that sit out there. We've got 3 trailers full of emergency equipment. And then we've got obviously our tanker, and then old engine 1, the 1942 engine 1, the historic piece of equipment out there, and then some other stuff. So that's what we're looking at. And it doesn't seem like it would really take them that long to do the job. And Kaufman's pretty good at figuring these things out. So, and the company seems to be really reputable. They're doing a lot of the 2018 Anchorage earthquake buildings. And so they know what they're doing. Basically what we'd like to do is do the foam injection underneath it. And they would dig out the foundation around, dig out the substrate around the foundation, get to the bottom of it, see what's under there, and then drill holes into our concrete and then spray foam that would lift the whole building up. So basically what it would look like is if the building was sitting level, the corner of the building is like this. And then what it's doing to the whole structure, it's twisting. And you can see the sheet metal on the outside is starting to crumple. And it's really evident. Even this year, you can really see it more than it is. So we have $150,000 that is allocated from the ARPA funds. And we're hoping, and from what Kaufman was saying, if everything goes as planned, we should be under or within that $150,000 tag. If we have to go over a little bit, once we get all the estimates, we'll just come back to council and see what you guys want to do. So that's pretty much what I have. Any questions, throw them out and I'll try and answer them when I can in next council meeting or whatever. But right now, this is what we got.
Yeah. Any questions for Paul?
How old is this building?
The building, so I think the structure was actually erected in 2002. And I would argue that the building started sinking right after it was poured.
Sure.
I started work with the city of Cordova in 2004 when I moved back here, and the department started finishing or trying to finish the interior by placing walls inside it. And you can see where they stopped because the walls, they wanted to be level with the floor, and you can see the step down of things. So it's not from an earthquake, but where the building is sitting and how the material was placed, it's all sliding into the lake, unfortunately.
So do you know if is it just a slab, there footers or anything underneath?
There's engineered footings for each post, and then it's got the slab poured within it. But
Interesting.
yeah, it's a 6-inch slab. So fortunately it hasn't cracked yet,
Right.
which is really, really weird. But if you walk into the building and you go to that side, it looks like an amusement park where you're kind of like, okay, where am I? How am I walking? You know, it's really weird. So anyway, we're trying to get that finished.
And then from a city standpoint, we want to use, at what point does this have to go out to bid for work? Or is that not a thing? Does that not matter? Or-
Well, and that was my question too. Because we've already hired Kaufman Engineering to do our assessments of all our facilities, we would like to hire them again to do the contract
Sure.
and to hire them to manage. The other part of that is, do we go with the professionals recommended company that they work with, or do we go out for RFP? One thing that I think we found out was that the ARPA funds, we have to dedicate the funds this year, and we can push the project out to next year, but why wait?
Sure.
So we could, I'd like to recommend the city sole source their contractor, because that's the one they work with. So,
And I'm not against it. I just want to make sure we're,
We got it.
okay, perfect. Thank you.
and we have no problem RFPing the project. It's just Kaufman Engineering knows this company.
Sure.
They've worked with them in the past, and they're still working with them with all the stuff that's going on in Anchorage.
Oh.
Yeah. Yes.
Is there gonna be any bank stabilization done or just lifting the building? Because if it's continually sinking, like it sounds like, just throwing some foam in there, we're gonna be, in 10 more years, we'll be right back in the same position unless we
Yeah,
can
and-
stabilize that.
And that's why Kaufman Engineering, the professionals are going to come and take a look at it. And yeah, no, I get your point. And what they say is that even though the bank is kind of eroding down, when they spray this foam underneath it and lift it, that is supposed to suck everything together. So I don't think anything else would erode, but no, I get your point. And I think we talked to Kevin a little bit, and the city does own a little bit of property behind the bank where it drops off. And even if you go, I was out there yesterday and I was looking around and you can see on the backside of the building and even where our fire training connexes are, the banks are like, they're sloughing off. And I don't know if it's just the water runoff or the way it was compacted or if it wasn't compacted back in the past. We don't know. There was nobody really here to keep an eye on it, but hopefully Kaufman will be able to help us with that. But I'll make sure that they understand our concerns with the whole everything.
Mhm.
So.
Anybody else have any questions? Anybody
Yeah,
online?
I got some comments.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, well, in the first place, we're here because the city in the past has failed to keep an eye on these jobs. So either you've got the whole bank moving, which I don't think is the issue, or you got lack of compaction right to start with on the job, or you got organics and lack of compaction. My guess is that's what's going on. You got organics there as they rot, the ground settles and the building settles. I wasn't in favor of Kaufman Engineering when they did this building assessment because honestly, anybody could have done these building assessments. What we needed was somebody to come in and say, this is the problem with your building and this is how to fix it. Now what they're telling you is pay us and we'll tell you how to fix it. I think we've got local expertise there. I think that would be the first way I would prefer to go. I think John Bannon's a very smart individual when it comes to this type of thing. We can go out there and do some test holes. They can see what's in that ground. That's what's going to have to be done anyway. And maybe we come up with some recommendations, but I would prefer we run this by a local contractor first and see what can or cannot be done. And maybe he'll tell us, just go get it engineered, but my guess is he probably could come up with some fixes for this building. So that's the way I would prefer to go, not hand our money out to some outside company and get something over-engineered. I'm not a fan of the foam product that works with sidewalks, that works with some building, but we're in a rainforest. If you're getting settlement in the ground, the foam is just going to settle on top of that. You have to remove the organics if that's the problem. If the hillside's going, you got to figure a way to stabilize it. So I think we need to take a better look at this. And again, I would encourage you maybe to get John Bannon from Wilson Construction to maybe get some input, or maybe you have, but that would be my suggestion.
Any other questions, comments, questions for Paul? Yeah, look forward to hearing progress.
Yep. Okay, moving on to Alaska X. Alaska X is a training program at the federal level to the state, tribal, and local levels. We received a grant last year to help pay for most of the training. It's been it's the Alaska X, or the Alaska Shield is what we used to call it. I don't know why they changed the name to Alaska X, but Alaska Shield is a 3-year planning deal. And Heather Brandon has really headed the whole program as your emergency management coordinator, who is also from a grant. And so we tried to build, or Heather tried to build the scenario, which was from the state of Alaska as an earthquake. And we tried to get the National Guard in to assist with us in any way they could. Obviously, I wanted to bring in more tents, to bring in more people and do the whole thing, but unfortunately they weren't able to do that. The National Guard that was here this week was from Maine. So they flew all the way in here and they had to put up all their tents in the snow and rain last night, and they looked unhappy. But once they got into their tent and the heat got going, it was pretty good. Fire department, our response was basically shoreline rescue response. And basically what we tried to figure out is how many people would it take to relocate the fire department and all of its equipment while trying to manage an emergency. We had 3 paid staff, and luckily we had 2 extra volunteers that were able to help out with it. And so basically we had 4 volunteers, or 4 people moving equipment and responding to all emergencies while I was a deputy chief managing the emergency operation part of it. And what's really, really weird and what you really have to think about is, yes, we have a really strong volunteer fire department, but what we'd like to train our folks is that if we have an earthquake and something happens to your house, you have to take care of your family first. The community comes second, because if you can't take care of your family, you're not going to be able to help the community if you're worrying about them. So Bedarkie Rec Center is the location for volunteer families to gather, and that's where they would stay. Yeah, it took us a while to get all the equipment out of there with 3 people at the beginning. We had to move 9 pieces of rolling stock and relocate it to the Cordova Electric. What's that called? Their plant down there at the lake. That was our staging area because it used to be up at the 2nd Street. But we found issues during the summer with the cannery workers. If we had a disaster, we have 1,000 cannery workers that need to go somewhere. So they were going to all go up to 2nd Street. And that's not a great place for, people walking around who are hurt or injured or need help, or you need to eat food or need to drink water, and then have our emergency services staged right there helping them. So we decided that the EAC Lake area was a good location for us. Hopefully it's not windy and blowing, but we can get inside the building. We're writing up an MOU right now with Cordova Electric to utilize that as our staging area during a disaster. So yeah, it worked out really, really well. It seemed like, there was a lot of people that were actually pushed into a position, but I think it turned out really well. Fire department did really well with the response. We got a really good training out of it. We've got a really good action or after action program where we're starting to write down our faults, what went wrong, what can we fix, and what basically can we write a grant for additional equipment and training. And that's why we do these exercises, and the state likes to see it. Cordova is one of the, and I'm sure you heard it before, is one of the top exercise participants within the state of Alaska. And so we receive funding from the state for that. A lot of the things that can be paid back for is our fuel, our time. If there's city employees who have to come in and restaff somebody for their overtime, that would be covered. So there's little bits and pieces that are going to be reimbursed, food, lodging, things like that. So any questions? Any comments? Anybody get to go see the tents? That was pretty cool to see set up. Their operation was crazy.
Yep, and this is for them to practice their thing too. They're most of those guys. I mean, there was 2 or 3 maybe for each different thing that had done it before, but there was 20 of them that it was all new to them too. And this was the first time they had opened up that kitchen.
It was brand new.
That particular kitchen.
Yeah, brand new.
Because the previous one was about half that size, he said, and you couldn't move around in it all. And this one was pretty nice.
Kristen.
Yeah.
She had her hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, Kristen.
I was just applauding.
Oh, okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, they did a excellent job. And I don't think, I spent most of the, from probably 3 o'clock till almost 7 with them out there at the tent thing while they were setting up the tents in the kitchen and such. And they needed a mop and a squeegee at one point in time and a mop bucket. So I went and fetched one of those from them from one of the canneries, and so they could mop the inside of their buildings. But I didn't get I think they were all enjoying it, actually. I don't think they were too unhappy with it. I mean, the weather could have been better.
Yeah, if they would have come the day before, it would have been much nicer to set up the tent.
And today for the tear down was pretty darn nice.
Mhm.
Yeah, then they were more than excited to tell you about the things, if you asked any questions about it. They were they're pretty organized. They have 4 or 5 electricians that handle that, and HVAC people that handle all the heating and the electrical, and they're completely self-contained. They don't, they've got their own fuel barrels and everything that they brought in. They even brought in their own loader. I don't know if anybody saw that. They had a a big loader that they brought in too. So, pretty impressive that they can bring all of that equipment.
Yeah, they actually landed the C-17 at the airport. Rob Matson was trying to get them settled in, and yeah, that's what basically brought all that equipment down. So I'm not sure how they're getting it home, but like you can leave it if you want.
Yeah.
Also, I'd like to mention that the hospital received a grant that they actually have a nice shelter too, and that was used and set up at the helo pad. I don't know if everyone had a chance to stop by there and see that, but you know, they had quite a few beds in there and to help out with emergency response. So just another piece of equipment that we need to keep using and keep training with.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty impressive. Yeah.
Well, I know we mentioned our emergency service building and relocating, I guess. Is there any active work being done in your department looking for grants or?
Negative.
Okay.
Nope, nothing.
Well, then,
There's,
like we have.
I figured I'll probably retire in that building. So at one point we did a few years ago, just for a little reference, a few years ago, we did start to write a grant through the state of Alaska for hazard mitigation. And basically what it was to dismantle that facility and relocate it to one of our other sites that was chosen. But unfortunately it didn't fit or meet the criteria. And so there it sits. And the state actually paid for all the assessment and the evaluation of that facility. And unfortunately, it didn't meet the criteria. So here we sit. So
One of the things that will come out of this whole exercise is a multi-page report that Heather will do that has all of the good things we found and the things we need and things we were missing. And, and I think it will probably say several times in there that a building moved to the proper location
100%.
would be a good thing. And that is, they expect you to use that report as backup for grants or with Congress or whoever we need to. That's what I said. I think once we get that report, I think maybe another crack at trying to.
Yep, I look forward to it.
Trying to get that certainly documented that.
Right.
The need for it. If we had it, we could have, can you imagine how your recoveries would have been had you not had to worry about moving all the equipment?
Exactly. Yeah.
Had not had to worry about moving dispatch somewhere, you're.
Yeah. And basically what comes out of these reports is the negatives are actually a positive thing.
Sure.
Because we want to see where we can work on and what we can fix and, what we need to purchase or just different things come out of these. And, the positives are good things, but the negatives are the best because they actually tell us what we need to work on, how the state can help us, how the federal government can help us, become more resilient during natural disasters.
Yep. Wendy?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, we have an incredible emergency service in this town. And for those of us who didn't get to participate in this, we are certainly glad that you did and that you do it regularly and take the lead.
Absolutely.
Our department in town, I have the utmost faith in response. And we really appreciate what you do.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that.
Yep.
We don't need you until we need you, and then we really need you.
Right. But the big shout out is to Heather Brennan. She really put this together and she was the main contact. She was calling and emailing and trying to get, we're going to have Navy SEALs come in and fly in and, helicopters come in and take the community for a ride. And, there was this big thing, but a lot of as the planning process, gets to the top of the mountain, then things start dropping off. So a lot of things did get grounded. So we're happy to have what we did and move on to the next one, I guess.
Yeah. Some of that grounding was due to radios not working or the comms between the ground and the airplanes and it's good that they figured that out because in a real emergency you want that to work the next time.
Yep.
So
yeah. Oh, that being said too, there was issues with our tsunami siren. For whatever reason, our dispatch console wasn't talking to our tsunami siren. So I was actually down there holding the buttons. The sirens do work. We're just having a communication issue with whatever's happening between the data or the wires that cross. I don't know. So I know we got a call into the company that's going to come and fix it on Monday. So hopefully we can get that going. But the tsunami sirens do work, but they have to be done manually. So I guess I'm the chosen one for that.
And we do have a couple more sirens coming.
Eventually we're gonna have, there's some talks with the state. There's grants out there for us. I think we're going to receive 2 additional tsunami sirens, kind of like the ones that are out in the Northville and the one out at White Shed Road. One's gonna be put on top of your house and then one's gonna be put on top of Tony Chanella's house. So, anyway.
Well,
Do you agree with
we
that?
don't hear the tsunami siren at all at our place,
Right.
but at the time that the alerts went off, somebody took a shower in my gray building and set all the smoke, fire alarms off. So right now we have some folks out there that think tsunami sirens sound like.
Yeah, so hopefully by the end of this year, we'll have a really good knowledge of what additional sirens we need, where we can locate them. It's a project, but it's something that we've been doing for a while. So I'd like to keep going on that.
Yeah, sounds good. Any other questions, comments for Paul? Thank you guys for
Thank you.
all you did there.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Your turn.
Good evening. Okay. All right, harbor update. So I have joke, it's not really a joke, but it's real. Got a notification from MARAD that they'd like to audit us.
Even though they haven't paid.
Welcome, anytime. South Harbor project as of today, construction continues with floats. We're working on I right now. Got the first 7 piles put in there. So that's good. Demolition disposal, 100% complete. There might be some odds and ends here and there, but you know, small pieces, but you know, all the stuff is taken out. So we got a clean slate to work on. Permitting, no issues there. No issues with marine mammals. We're still well under the glide slope of concern for otters. I don't have updated numbers there, but we're, you know, we had 1 last week or 2 weeks ago. We're doing just fine there. Funding, that's the most important thing. That's all anyone cares about. That's all I care about right now. Raise grant fully executed. We are still grinding painfully on with our first reimbursement. That's all I have on that. We paid them another $2 million, them being Kernighan. We're 20,971,973.75 spent to date. We have a $550,000 reimbursement into the Tier 1 grant from Alaska State. That gives us 1.125 million remaining in Tier 1 grant. And we're still waiting on the $25,000 sewer pump out loan. For whatever reason, that takes a long time. But it's 25 grand. We'll be okay. Notes, southwest corner of the harbor is still closed. Nickoloff closures are increasing as the digging along the street continues. We had a meeting today with CEC and CTC to go over all the utilities in the street and make sure that, you know, we've got a good handle on what's going in and any loss of service, which we don't anticipate there will be. We're going to have to make some tweaks to the design. But when I say tweaks, I mean just move something a couple feet here, a couple feet there. We won't lose anything that we've designed. And also CEC and CTC won't lose anything. They don't have to move anything. We'll be able to keep everything where it is. And that's really good. And again, you know, you put stuff down on CAD, it looks good, and then you start digging and things change. So we had one, I don't know if it's a transformer, just say transformer, one of those green boxes that has electrical things in it. And we'd secured it because it was right on the edge of where they were digging. And once they started driving that pile and that hammer started hitting and vibrating, it slid off into the ditch. So things like that we've had to worry about and watch for. So got those secured. We've got a good plan for everything east of the memorial, just to keep that stuff, because there's one huge telecom cabinet that we have to make sure that we don't dig close to it. So we're going to reinforce it before we start digging around there. But it's just the reality check of once you start digging and tearing into something, you don't always get what you plan for. So we had a good meeting with them. No issues on their end as far as
what they've got in the street there, and we don't anticipate any major outages. And CEC is providing those updated transformers, those three-phase transformers for us. So that's a big part of the electrical for the project. Electrical testing, we are working on the electrical testing for vessels, and that's a bit of a challenge because you can't test the vessels until you have all the electrical in. You can't just plug them into 110 or 220 power and test them. You have to test them at the actual pedestal that they're going to be plugged into, or one just like it. So that's going to take a while, and we're working on the equipment, and that'll be a bit of a challenge because the requirement is NEC, so that's National Electrical Code. So that's new. I think it's only a couple years old. So the North Harbor does not have those requirements. South Harbor will because it's a requirement. Seward and Valdez have gone through this. Tony's in comms with them, their harbor master, to understand how it works. Doesn't sound like it's a huge deal, but it's something to be aware of and something we're going to have to communicate. And Tony's crew is going to go out and test boats as we get things put online. Again, this doesn't matter for the North Harbor because they are not compliant with the code, nor did they need to be when it was built. Still tracking on schedule, and we're anticipating having vessels moving around in late April. That's where we're at right now with SERVs beginning on the 25th of April. That's our first big milestone date. That's all I have. Pending questions.
Questions for Colin? Be up there.
I cannot stress how difficult this reimbursement process is.
Now they want to audit you before they even giving you a nickel.
Isn't that nice?
It's an easy audit.
Yeah.
You should- yeah, right? Easy audit. Yeah. Yeah. You want to spend a week with me? You don't. Yeah, it's painful and it keeps changing, but we'll get there. We have a grant agreement. We have to get there. So, it's a real challenge, and one that I don't think anyone's crystal ball would have shown that. It's, I'm managing 7 other grants, close to, or grants and loans and bonds, $20 million worth. Haven't had a single problem with a single grant, including Fed grants, but this one in particular is onerous beyond your wildest dreams. So keep grinding away. And they're still doing good work out there. So that's
Alrighty.
all I have.
Thank you, Colin. Anything else, Sam?
That's it. Unless anybody has questions.
Any questions?
Question,
Yeah,
yeah,
go
actually
ahead, Casey.
for Kevin. Do we have any updates on bids for our 2 lots that were out?
Yeah, so we had 3 RFP out, 2 for a lot and 1 for the Science Center building.
That's right.
We did receive 2 proposals for the impound lot, so I will be processing those. They will go to the Planning Commission for a review and recommendation, which will then come to you. So that will go before the Planning Commission at the April 9th meeting. So it is likely that it'll probably not get to council until the May meeting just because of the way the meetings overlap. But yes, we did receive 2 for that. Nothing for the breakwater fill lot or for the Science Center building.
Thank you.
Any other
I
questions?
follow up on that, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
So have we got an alternative site for the impound lot? And will that be presented to planning and zoning so they can make their decision?
The alternative site is the expansion at the Baylor facility, which I'm still working with the state on final review and approval of that. So that will be tied to any decision that we make with that impound lot property, that we will need to secure that approval and begin the work and the transfer of those cars, because the person who purchases the property is not responsible for removing those cars. That was not included in the RFP.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the manager? Okay, thank you, Sam. Clerk's report? You didn't have anything extra?
I don't have anything, the clerk submitted information in the packet. I can read off the election results if everybody would like. Otherwise, they have been posted throughout the building and online.
Yeah, just for those on the radio or anywhere else, obviously all the single people running for single spots won their positions, and there was the one write-in.
Yeah, correct. Dave Zastro was the write-in for seat E for council.
So Dave Sastro won that seat, and the proposition passed 3-1 roughly.
Roughly, yeah.
Okay.
A comment on that, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know there's been some discussion and we may be discussing even more, maybe limiting the participation of council people on the phone or other avenues. Just take a look at this election. You know, we had an open election seat and we had one person running, so let's not be thinking about trying to pull down the number of people that would run for council.
Hey, any other questions for the clerk and the clerk's report? Yeah, correspondence. We don't have any correspondence this time. So ordinances, resolutions, resolution 0324-10. Resolution of the Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska. I don't have my glasses today. Abolishing all previous investment policies and adopting a revised investment policy to provide guidelines for all investments of the city.
So
Okay.
moved.
I'll second it.
Counselor Carpenter?
Sure. Well, I'm in favor of it. I've got a question or two, but this was presented to us by the investment advisor that responded to an RFP that the city manager issued last year. And so this is recommended language and recommended action. And I am in support of having an investment policy. I think that makes all the sense in the world. And I support the resolution.
Councilmember Rainey?
Yeah, I also support the resolution. They did some great research for us and I didn't see anything in the policy that needed to be changed.
Councilmember Carpenter, you said you had some questions on it, or?
Well, I do. I am curious. I know that this language came from the investment advisor and it was in I think it was in the last two packets, but, and I neglected to ask sooner and I apologize for that, but is the language, and I don't know if it needs to be, but was the language in the investment policy run by our city attorney? Or was there any consideration of that?
It was not run by this past the attorney.
Okay. And I'm assuming that this language, so this was language that was provided by the investment advisor, and I see that they make some references to Alaska statute, which is good. So anyway, I was just curious. I just wondered if that was something we wanted to do just as one more guardrail, safeguard, whatever. I realize I could hold things up. I just thought I would ask the question. I'm not going to fall on my sword over it if others, feel strongly one way or the other, but I just thought it was worth asking. Thank you.
Councilmember Baylor?
Yeah, I'm supportive, but Kristen brings up a good point. That might be worth the discussion, or maybe could we pass this with the condition that it gets a look over by our lawyers and nothing's wrong with it. I didn't think about that until she just brought that up. I'd like to hear what others have to say, but that may not be a bad idea, but we still could move forward with it on condition that the lawyers did not find anything that we should not be doing, with the lack of better words to say. Thank you.
Councilmember Sherman?
I guess I was thinking that the legal team had at least seen it or commented on it, but I do remember the part about conforming with state statutes and complying with that. And so I guess maybe I got that mixed up with the legal review, but I'm in favor of it. This is something that needs to be done and that we've been working on. So I could go with the council if they want to have it legally reviewed, but moving it forward, I think, is of the essence. Thanks.
Councilmember Kinsman.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of that as well. I don't know if do we need to move to a different amendment to this? And that was the other question I had. I mean, part of the suggestion, did we need to separate out this agenda and vote on that first? I don't know the answer to that. I'm just looking at the recommended action of separating the agenda items and we didn't. Are we voting on them together as one combined agenda item? Or do we need to vote to have them separated out? I
think they already are two separate items.
Yeah, that's,
Okay.
I was looking at it as a separate item. I seconded it as two separate items.
Okay, as 032410. Anyways, I was just referencing what's here as recommended action of separating the items, so I didn't.
That's just clarifying that there's one memo to address both items, but you would vote on each resolution separately.
Perfect. Yeah, I think we've done a lot of work in this. We need to move forward with it, but I would hate to have to visit this again in even a year from now or less and redo all of this just because eventually our attorneys see it and there's one thing wrong with it and that requires more work on it. So
I think if you all want to pass it, we can pass it by the attorney. It would just be housekeeping, if anything. The original investment policy was run through the lawyers.
Mhm.
So really what we would be looking at is the changes that Blake suggested. And, this is what he does for a living and also as a legal
yeah, absolutely.
side. So I think sure, we can run it past the lawyers. I don't think anything will come back, but if it did, it would be housekeeping
Okay.
issues
I'm in
that I
favor of
think
it.
we could.
The issue with it. Thank you, Sam.
Councilmember Jones.
I would be comfortable with that too. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. I trust Blake a whole lot more than I trust our attorneys, quite frankly. That's my opinion. After 20 years' experience with our attorneys. Councilmember Jones,
I agree with you.
any comments on the? Okay, anybody want round two? Ready to vote on, this is just a one-time resolution vote, so it won't come back for another reading, so. All those in favor of resolution 0324-10, say aye.
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 Motion oppose? Motion carries. Resolution 032411, a resolution of the council of the city of Cordova, Alaska, designated asset allocation for the investment of the city's general reserve permanent fund.
So move.
Seconded.
Councilmember Rainey?
Yeah, I think we looked at this and discussed it as a group, and I feel pretty comfortable with where we're heading with it. And I'd like to just see it move forward.
Councilmember Kinsman?
I echo that. And I think we had a great presentation on this and we've had some good dialogue on it. So I'm in favor of moving it forward.
Councilmember Jones?
No comment.
Councilmember Baylor?
Yes, I'm in favor of it.
Councilmember Sherman?
Yes, I'm in favor of it as well.
Councilmember Carpenter?
I support it.
Okay, there being not many comments on it, let's, all those in favor of resolution 032411, say aye.
Aye.
I
Oppose? Motion carries unanimously. We have no unfinished business, pending agenda. What do we got on next?
So Barb Jewel asked us to talk about the letter and or resolution. Well, if you want to provide direction on that.
What's the council's preference on that? Do you want to do a resolution at the next meeting or we could just write a letter and
Resolution would probably hold more.
So too,
It would, it just might
Yeah.
be,
I think it's worth doing right for especially what we're
I
asking.
don't know if it's gonna be too late at that point in time,
Yeah.
but that's
Yeah.
my only thought. Is that they're in the middle of it now, so,
Could we do both? Could the
We
mayor
can,
write,
They-
certainly,
could the mayor write
certainly,
a letter? And then we can
Certainly.
follow up with a resolution from the whole council?
certainly, we can do that.
I'd be in favor of that.
Yeah, let's do that. So I'll get with Susan and get a letter written and,
Thank you.
we'll put that on the agenda for next time. Put a copy of the letter and
Mhm.
copy of the resolution to vote on. Anything else on the pending agenda? Do we have any?
Yes, I need to move maybe two things forward or separate something out. I know Susan sent out on, I'm trying to find it here on the agenda, essentially around the council attendance, what actually Councilmember Baylor referenced. So what I would like to see move forward is one agenda item specifically around telecommunication attendance of a general council meeting and having some kind of attendance policy. What I am throwing forward is 50% or really 12 is as setting that forth as what the attendance policy would be. 50% in-person attendance requirement. And that's, I'm not even, at this point, not going to go to how the 50% works. That's, I think, where it would be appropriate to have it as an agenda item. I've had enough conversation with public who have this as a concern, so I'm bringing it forward as one piece of attendance policy.
Do you want that as an action item with a proposal
Yes.
in there for the,
And I've talked with Susan. She's not.
Okay.
here. We've emailed, corresponded back and forth somewhat, but
all right,
So do we need a second?
we'll need a second on it. Or
yeah, is there somebody else that wants to?
I would second that.
Okay, so we'll,
and
you
have
can
another
work with
piece.
Susan to
Yeah.
get something before us, and then once something's before us, we can then discuss, modify.
Yes, so the second piece to attendance, and this is actually from working with the attorneys when I had my sit down with them, was our executive session and I'm trying to think what the Board of Equalization, any quasi judicial closed door functions that we roll being 100% in-person attendance. So that would be another agenda item separate. I want to separate out those attendance policies. We don't currently have that. And I know last year when we brought this up, there was different municipalities and the examples of kind of their attendance policy. And I know I'm working with her to bring that back forward with this. So as a second agenda item, that would be what I would be moving forward. In-person executive session and quasi judicial, any of those roles where we have a closed door being in person.
Okay, we can do that.
Does the Board of Equalization go into I've not actually never been.
It's quasi judicial and there's a piece that there's closed door.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've actually never been to one of them.
Oh, we're gonna change that soon.
Any big things from staff coming up for the next meeting?
Was there a second on
Yep.
on that request? No, for the second one that Kinsman
Oh.
had. There was a second for his attendance, but we
Not
did
for
not get a second
second
for the
agenda item,
executive
but for-
session and quasi judicial in-person requirement.
I'll second that.
Our next meeting is the 20th.
Yes.
Any big things on that?
Not that I know of yet. I don't have anything on my plate right now, but
Do we have any workshops that we need to be having?
not yet.
When,
I see on here, like, unless I missed the date, I know there's a few things going on, but our next school board work session is May 1st. Is there one before that as a work session? I think maybe I missed that date if there was one.
Yeah, Unfortunately, it looks like it's March 20th at the same time as your regular meeting. So I.
No.
Oh, that's at 6, it's right before you.
Okay. That might be enough. Okay.
That I have reached out to see if we can allow for a Zoom. Or it would be Zoom, not phone.
Is there
That's
an
the budget meeting that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
It's not the 26th. Okay, I wondered.
So is there opportunity to move it into this building and do a work session? I don't know logistically what that looks like. Okay.
But what I'd like to, I think it really is so important together is that they put a request in to move that meeting to different meetings.
Okay.
And not both having board meetings. So I will work with the administration.
And then will you work with Susan on where we go? Yeah.
The, just so you know, the 21st is another big CTC thing. There's the, annual meeting, which is the 28th, but the Thursday before that is the tech showcase. So that's an in-person giant showcase with food and things. It's on Thursday, the 21st. So when you're thinking about rescheduling, that might be tough competition.
Hey, anything else we need to bring up for the next meeting? Okay, hearing none then, we'll move on to audience participation.
So first off, I wanted to say thank you to the mayor and to the council for recognizing that we may need a letter of support sooner than your next meeting, because those decisions are coming up very quickly. So I appreciate your willingness to do that in addition to a resolution. The other is that I really appreciate that the council is looking at attendance. And I appreciate Councilman Baylor's conversation about the fact that there were unfilled positions, and there are frequently unfilled positions for boards and commissions and everything else. So I think as a community, we need to look at how we increase community participation in these roles. And I can tell you, and again, I understand that every single person sitting on this council is doing it with the best of intentions for our community. And I appreciate that. And I would like to be represented by people who are here in the community at least 50% of the time. So I really appreciate, and that's a hard conversation to have amongst yourselves. So I appreciate that you're taking a look at it. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? We lost most of them, huh? Okay, then, council comments. Councilmember Rainey.
No, good meeting. I'm really, again, impressed about our EMS crew and our local emergency response folks. Lance, how fast can you be running? How quick can you get the food truck going? Okay, so yay. I'm willing to say yes to any opportunity of rolling food options. Very pleased to see Lance putting a breakfast option on there, so thank you for that.
I might have to change my hours a little bit, because everybody says they have to be at work at 7, so I might have to start at 6.
I will not argue that point. I appreciate staff and everything going on, and yeah, the school allocation is a tough one, and it's something we really need to be diligent on, because I think one of the few things that is so attractive to the Cordova School District, being a parent who's had 4 go through this district, is the opportunities that they have for extracurriculars. And those are going to be gone if we have to look at choosing between extracurriculars and staff. And I think that's a real hard conversation, and we need to do what we can to help get that allocation up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Kinsman.
Yeah, thank you, Council Member Rainey, on those comments. I want to go a little bit further with Alaska X and actually give a strong recognition, and maybe we can do something even broader for Heather Brannon, and I'd be open to working with you, Mayor, on that, because she does a lot professionally in what I have to do and work with her She's outstanding to work with. We have our emergency response team at a corporate level who was on site last year when we did our triennial drill and had very, very positive things to say about how that drill was ran. And that is another one I know works with the state, but Heather Brandon plays a big role and part in that. So thank you, Heather. Thanks for bringing these opportunities to our town, because that just gives, I mean, it really just puts us on the map in a very positive way and very professional way. So thank you. I look forward to driving the issue forward of relocating our emergency response building. I know hopefully I can breathe, and hopefully our current council can help breathe some new life into that. I know it's gone and up, down, and sideways, but hopefully with this, we can get creative and get something moving with that. So I look forward. I know how these work. It starts with these reports and opportunities. So I'm grateful that she's bringing these opportunities into our community, so we can kind of highlight, as Paul was saying, some of the negative things, because that's how things get fixed. So thank you for that. Thanks, staff, and really just thanks, Sam, for filling in as manager. You are doing great, and it's thank you. Thank you for doing it. I know it's not a small task that you're doing. So I look forward to continually working with you. And with that, that's all I have. Thank you.
Councilmember Jones.
Yeah, just congratulations to the winning candidates on the election. That was a tough race, and thanks for stepping forward, and appreciate the community voting for the ballot initiative. That was something that I asked for years ago, and glad to see it finally pass. I think that should help to encourage participation in our elections. And I'm happy to see it pass. Thank you for Lance for being willing to invest in our community and open up a business. That's pretty awesome.
Appreciate it.
Looking forward to being one of your patrons when you get open. And as far as the discussion on the pending agenda for a requirement for 50% of the time, I tend to agree, but I also believe it's a little bit of a double-edged sword, being somebody who might not be physically present in the community 50% of the time because I'm out on my boat fishing. It doesn't make me any less of a citizen of this community. It doesn't make me any less of a taxpayer in this community. And just because I'm 200 days on the water a year. So I don't think I'll be in support of that. I can understand the intention behind it, but I feel like it could adversely affect any fishermen from participating, and I don't want to see that, seeing as we are a fishing oriented town. So thanks.
Councilmember Baylor.
Yeah, well, thanks, staff. And Sam, thanks for filling in, doing a great job. I hope you guys will reach out to maybe the local contractor for maybe another thought process on raising that building up, and ultimately maybe you'll go right back to square one where you are with the foam. But there's definitely some pros and cons with the foam. It's not a cure-all, but I know I certainly wouldn't vote to spend the money unless somebody local did look at it to get a second opinion. And yeah, appreciate everybody being there, and good meeting. Thanks, Mayor, for running it.
Councilmember Carpenter.
Thank you. So I want to echo what people have said already. I appreciate Councilmember Kinsman's comments on the Alaska X drill. Certainly, it would be great to recognize Heather and all of Cordova's preparedness has always enhanced our reputation. I remember when we had the tsunami warning in 2018 or 2019, I don't remember which year it was, but the hospital evacuated the entire hospital in 45 minutes. That still sticks in my memory as just being remarkable. I'm pleased to hear that CCMC is operating in the black for year-end 2023. That's terrific. And I mentioned well, I was thinking about this discussion about the fire substation, and I agree with Councilmember Baylor 100% that John Bannon is a great resource in our town. I do think it helps to ask to get a second opinion from professional engineers, and if we need to go out, if you don't think the foam is the answer, I don't think it would hurt at all to do a competitive solicitation. I know Mr. Trumbley really likes working with Kaufman, and that's great, and they like working with this other firm. I don't think it hurts to at least ask for other approaches. It doesn't cost us anything. So I still think it would be good to get some engineering proposals. And I wanted to let folks know I was in Anchorage last week for the Mariculture Conference, and I got to go visit with Helen Howarth and Jeff Bailey for a little bit one afternoon, and Helen is doing great. She's amazing. She was chattering away like a magpie, and she's completely engaged and following everything. She reads the packets and is following along. We did have a conversation. I was saying, I mentioned that we were scheduled to have a meeting with Stutz and Stevens, and we know that didn't happen. But there's some concern over raw fish tax and the fact that I think a lot of coastal communities might have a problem with revenues from raw fish tax falling off, and what do we do to plug that gap? So that might be something we should be thinking about talking to Stutz and Stevens about, just to say we all need to be thinking about what some solutions might be if that comes to pass. But she's in good spirits. She has one more round of chemo to go, and I think some surgery, but she's doing quite a bit better. So that was really positive, I think, just to see her attitude. So I think that's it for my comments. Thank you.
Well, good. Thank you for that report. Councilmember Sherman.
Thanks, man. When you go last, everybody's already said everything you want to say. I also wanted to commend CCMC. It was fun to watch the CT scanner leave and see what they were doing. Great news that they're in the black, and I really hope the word gets out to the community about what they try and do to help those in the early first and second quarter of the year with high deductions, because you can't put off your medical care, and that's an important message that needs to get out. Thanks, Barb Jewell, for coming. Yep, those are hard conversations to have, but they're really important. So hopefully we can help. I agree with everything that was said on Alaska X, and there's a lot of work that's already been done on the new safety building from the past. I think that could be resurrected, and like Paul said, there are a couple of grants I know we wrote early on that could be resurrected and added to with the new report. Colin, yeah, I feel your pain on the grants, and I admire your perseverance, so keep at it. And I just wanted to welcome Dave Zastro too. I think he'll be a nice addition to City Council. And I also spoke with Helen, and she does have one more round of chemo and surgery, but she has got improved palliative care so that she can eat better. And she's pretty excited about that, and enjoying eating well again. So that was a real nice upbeat conversation that we had as well. So, and that's all I got.
Hey, thank you. I too would welcome Dave Zastro to the council, and thank David Janka for putting his name in again for the Prince William Sound RCAC board. I think he does a good job there for us, and keeps us informed pretty well. And Lance, your willingness to have a business in town, and hopefully the community will return the favor and give you big support. So the Alaska X, we will work on something. I think the biggest thing that Heather was looking forward to was maybe it's a little bit of vacation time. Soon as, I don't know if she was going to do that before or after the report, but nonetheless, everybody did a good job on that, and And obviously Heather did the coordinating. And, you know, Cordova does have a reputation with all of these other agencies that work with us, the Salvation Army, the National Guard. They all made comments that they enjoy coming to Cordova. There was a couple of the guys with the National Guard. I think he told me 90% of them were from Maine, but about 10% were from Alaska. You know, there's a couple of them that had been here last summer for the
Triennial.
time out there at Shepherd Point,
Oh.
clearing the wood out there. I think they were out here for a couple of weeks last summer doing that for NVE, and they really enjoy their time in Cordova. And the news gal couldn't say enough things about how beautiful our town was, and she's been all over the state, and this was quickly becoming her favorite place. So it was mentioned before by a couple of people that we present that professional. They want to come here to train, and that's good. That gives us a leg up on the competition, so to speak, for getting our people trained up and making sure that we're prepared. So we don't have any need for an executive session this evening, so our business being concluded, we will adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.